I was gonna start by talking about Joker 2 and how it is one of the movies of the year. But then I realized that doing 3 videos in a row over the course of 6 months that only talks about how silly I think Joaquin Phoenix is maybe isn't the best representation of what this channel could be. So instead, go watch Jack Saint's video. It's a very good one. Right there. I agree with everything that guy says. Goo. I don't know. Just wanted to do an end of the year kind of a thing. Just talk about the year, what Hollywood has been like, what people have been experiencing. What's the fun stuff I can talk about? It's just been such a downer year. It's been such a bummer of a fucking year. And I have this long, awesome list of movies that I want to watch, and I haven't been able to go to the theater at all for them, and I haven't been able to afford to rent them on Prime. I guess the thing I was most excited to talk about, I've been trying to make a video about windows, about release windows for a really long time. We have like 2 or 3 or 4 unfinished videos because shit moves too fast for me to cut. And then we're doing everything else in life, all of the positive stuff in addition to all the other stuff. And that's kind of been what we've been contending with. I think a lot of people in Hollywood have been contending with just the speed of how everything is going. We haven't talked since the election. I'm not going to talk about it, but things definitely feel a little different. And with that comes our town locking the doors a little bit. We're all exhausted. Everyone's pretty exhausted. When we were growing up, there was a certain amount of time, and we've talked about it on this channel before, where a movie was released, and then there's what you call a window, which is the amount of time before the movie is released, while the movie is released, and then the amount of time from when it leaves the theaters to when it comes to home video. And that's mostly the main part of the window, is the one where it leaves the theaters and goes to home video. And when we were kids, it used to be up to a year, sometimes longer, to get out of the theaters and into home video. And we can go down that route too, because the fact of the matter is, like, movies like The Godfather in the early 70s used to stay in theaters for a year because there was no home video. So they would play it the long haul. That's why Star Wars was such a thing to see over and over and over again, because there was no other way to see the original Star Wars other than to go to the theater. The window's relatively young. It's only a few decades old, which means that we shouldn't be so precious with it. I can't be precious, which means I'm not going to be angry about anything, but the fact is that the shit's moving so fast that there's no time for any, I want to say, like, cognitive resonance to happen with an audience. We are excited for Deadpool and Wolverine because we've been wanting Deadpool and Wolverine to fight for 20 years. And we've had actors for that long, playing these characters. People can talk about the unbelievable success of Wicked as an original property, but original property, there's plenty of videos talking about not only is this based on an iconic play that's 20 years old, that's based on a book, that's based on a movie, that's based on another book that had been adapted into a movie before the one that everybody even knows. Wizard of Oz is as old an IP as most IPs in America, actually. And we're bringing Gladiator back because I was talking to Bones. It seems like it really reminds me of The Two Jakes and Chinatown. 30 years after the fact, many of the filmmakers of Chinatown, Roman Polanski excluded, Jack Nicholson directed it, Robert Towne wrote it, and it is a genuine sequel to Chinatown, and it's just feels like that's what's going on now. There's that Beetlejuice jump. It's the same as Psycho, right? They made Psycho in the early 60s, and then in the 80s there were just a bunch of like, oh, we have this property that everyone remembers. Let's do a bunch of Psycho movies. And those ended up being fine. I enjoy them. But also, they're distinctly different than the first one. I haven't seen Gladiator 2. I did see Beetlejuice 2, and it's distinctly different from the first one. Clerks 3 is distinctly different from the first Clerks. Matrix Resuscitations, Matrix Rebooted, Matrix Reloaded, whatever the last Matrix one was. Again, they went up to the filmmaker of the original and said, we're going to remake this whether you like it or not. So you can either be a part of it or don't. And the filmmaker took it upon themselves to kind of
be a part of it.
Yeah, to be a part of it. Like I always say, that movie challenges me in ways that I never expected to be challenged by a Matrix film. So I can talk, that's a whole separate video, to be perfectly frank.
Including key word association with the brand. The top two being originality and fresh, which I think are great things to keep in mind as you begin working on Matrix 4. And who knows how many more.
Nonetheless, these are the things that are doing well. Pixar is a brand in and of itself. These are the things that are doing well in theaters. The other thing about theaters is they are turning more into event spaces. With the Taylor Swift movie and with Wicked, Ryan Reynolds promoted people filming Deadpool with their phones so they could TikTok it. And man, there were people that worked at my movie theater that would make me kick people out for filming.
It's illegal.
It's illegal. It was a really big problem, and now it's being promoted. From the amount of time that they were promoting a movie in the theater, it was already available to stream. That's no time for anyone to figure anything out, and it just turns into this big fucking mishmash of content that people have to catch up on. Netflix. It's chewing gum. It's a shame, too, because these movies are good, and they're just kind of like being thrown onto a platform where if you don't know you have to keep promoting it, it's come full circle in that sense where it's like, it's as if there is no theatrical run anymore, period. It's so small that it doesn't actually matter. So the same way we were talking about The Godfather playing all the time, that means that now these movies go directly to Netflix, and it's as if they're playing all the time. But Netflix isn't going to promote their movie past these windows. So at the end of the day, I used to feel very down on myself because in Chicago, if you make a movie, an independent film, at the end of the day, you're just a filmmaker with a movie under your arm. And everything kind of dissipates. And the fact is I watched these people win the lottery at Sundance, have their really good movies get bought for bidding wars, have articles done on Collider that I'm a part of, promoting it, that seems to be done for posterity now, because after I watch the movie, I'm going to be Googling it and I'll find my article where they're promoting it. And then it goes on Netflix. As long as it stays in the top 10, people see it, and then you're just a director with a movie under your arm, trying to get people to watch your movie unless that's the end of the day, and you start the next project. And it's been interesting because these movies are really good, but I don't know what that means, especially in terms of, there's a thing that just came out. People are shocked to find out that Netflix makes movies for people to ignore. Take a look at the Netflix originals. Look at how they're all consistently between 4 and 6 stars out of 10 on IMDb. If you take a list, they're purposefully middling. And the big news was they request that writers have the characters explain what they're doing. Like the opening of an act of a sitcom, so that you can be doing your laundry and be listening to the movie.
So we've gone back to radio.
It's all cyclical, and that's kind of part of the bigger existential issue that we've all been having, that the town has been having, and that I've been thinking about deeply, is in a town built on making money off of entertainment, how can you exist in a world where people are fine making entertainment for themselves and doing it for free, and even making a couple of bucks doing it if they do. And so it really feels like we've entered this new age that I feel like we're pretty prepared for because we're so independent-minded. But with the window being gone, there's no time for a movie to kind of sit in the ether. There's a couple of flicks that came out. There's always a couple of flicks during the year that do it. Like, I'm really excited to see The Brutalist. I was saying that those are silent, harmless dog whistles to cinephiles by saying VistaVision and 3.5 hours long, and intermission, small budget, Fountainhead. In looking at the movies that I really liked this year, I was thinking about movies that I actively were interested in. things that I actively felt affected by, not just enjoyed. Like, there were many, many movies that I watched that were good. And I was happy to watch them. And I said, good movie. Good movie. And then there's a couple of movies that actually did something, but I was really shocked at... I could only find two. I had heard about I Saw the TV Glow for a long time. There's been some really interesting films this year by trans filmmakers. Particularly, I Saw the TV Glow and The People's Joker. I knew the filmmaker of The People's Joker back in Chicago way long ago. And so I was psyched to see her be as successful as she is, curious to see what happens next. But I didn't really understand what that actually means, like trans cinema and or movies made by trans filmmakers and how that kind of correlates or works. And I had been hearing about them for a long time, and finally TV Glow was on Max, so I watched it, and I had a very, I don't want to go so far as to say it was a profound experience. It was my favorite movie of the year, but that's because it actually made me think about stuff, and not in any egg way or anything like that, but it is, as a filmmaker, I believe her name is Sjoberg, is my age. And so there's a lot of references and a lot of moves that are made that speak to me as somebody my age. Like having entire plot points be about taping TV shows on a VHS and then passing them around is very specific to our age. And then also the obvious, like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Nick at Night, Alex Mack kind of stuff that she's playing with. At first, I thought it was really, really corny, and it wasn't working for me. But I think I was actively working against it, and it pretty much won me over. My problem with a lot of the discourse is that it was advertised as a horror film, and it's not particularly scary in that sense. It's more of an existential tragedy. It shook me by the end. I thought it was going one way, and then by the end, it's like jarring and painful in a really interesting, fascinating way. Ultimately explained certain concepts that I couldn't understand until I watched the movie, so I find the movie wildly successful anyway. I suggest it to everybody. Don't be fooled by the 5.4 on IMDb, because it's not a horror movie in that sense. Be open to it, because it's a great story in and of itself. I think if you are ignoring the trans allegory, then you are being purposefully ignorant to what the film is about. But I thought it was a really effective way to get these thoughts and feelings across, especially through that medium. And I've yet to see anything else that achieved the same thing. And then Milk and Cereal isn't even fucking an hour and a half long. I think it's only like 60 minutes long. And it's on YouTube. And I just think it's gonna change everything. It was made by Curry Barker and Cooper Tomlinson. And it's a horror film. And these guys got big doing Instagram shorts and YouTube shorts and TikTok shorts, like comedy stuff. And they still do really funny comedy shorts.
Who would have fucking thought we would make the biggest song? Everyone's freaking out. Fuck Drake. Fuck Kendrick. Fuck Taylor Swift. Whoa.
We can save the money, share the room, is that okay? The room we got two spots seems like a bunk bed is the way. Popcorn in my mouth, the ceiling, God, I'm sleeping away.
I had heard about it because there was a live show somewhere in town that I wasn't able to go to, but people were saying it was the scariest movie ever, and it was an independent film that was uploaded directly to YouTube.
And the budget was $800.
And the budget was $800, that's right. I heard that from more than two sources. I don't remember who all. But I saw more than one YouTube video talking about how it was the scariest, cheapest movie, and it's just on YouTube. It's fabulous. I can't recommend it enough. It's very, very scary. The acting is very good and inspired me a lot in terms of it's the alternative to what we were talking about before. The alternative to winning the lottery and going through the festival and bidding war. Because literally that filmmaker and the filmmaker of Milk and Cereal are in the exact same spot now. Curry Barker has said, like, I've had meetings with everybody. And that's awesome for him because it all speaks for itself. The art speaks for itself and the money and the views all end up speaking for itself. What was manufactured over here is perfectly organic over here. And I have to admire that. I love recognizing organic trends, especially in a town that's so into manufacturing them and, what am I trying to say, pretending like trends are what they are and like
controlling them while also pretending that anybody can do it.
Right, because, my big gripe with this Thanksgiving weekend, theater owners were thrilled over Thanksgiving weekend. Gladiator 2, Wicked, and Moana 2. This big trifecta, it's huge. The biggest weekend since Endgame. And we worked Endgame. I know it was busy. I'm not talking about the employees. They worked hard. I'm saying that theater owners and, studio execs were like, look what we did. We fucking nailed this one. We're back in business. And I feel like there's been 3 or 4 weekends where people were like, yeah, we did this. We're back in business. We're good to go. But also, like...
You have no window anymore.
No window, and 5 weekends do not make a trend over the course of 3 years. I'm glad Top Gun did well. Good for Barbenheimer. Good for this Gladiator 2 thing. But the fact is as we lean more into the movies that are being bought by Netflix are those mid-range $60 million movies. The saddest part of watching all of those Netflix movies over the weekend was that I was like, every single one of these at some point in my life would have had its own weekend at the theater. That Carry On with Taron Egerton, and Jason Bateman would have slayed at the theater. Pun intended. Sleigh. Christmas. Slay. These, I can't remember the second, but these are the movies that I watched this weekend. And all of them deserved maybe... Don't Move, I don't know. I liked it, but I don't know if it deserved a whole theater run. But there would have been a time where they would have tried to make it work. And now there's just no point. So there are actors, there are audiences, people clamoring for these $60 million movies. And what happens is they go to festivals, and then there's a bidding war, and everyone can write their articles. But it all lasts about a month now. And then Gladiator 2 was a massive success. Took a month. I was doing a video about how Inside Out 2 and Deadpool were both going to dictate what the window was. And it got down to 3 months. And I'm like, wow, 3 months. It's going to be 3 months. I remember when it was 6. I remember when it was a year. That weekend I was editing that video. Beetlejuice was the most successful movie of the season. And its window got down to a month. It was released in theaters at the top of September and was released sometime halfway through October for streaming. Yeah, for streaming. Well, it was earlier than that. Paid, and then a little while after that it's free on Max, and I waited till it was free on Max. I can't give these people any more money. You go to the movie theater and it's just like so much money, and they don't understand that if you're gonna throw down for the movie theater as if you're throwing down for Disneyland, then the movies have to be Disneyland level.
Handmade quality shit we're talking here.
It's what you've been saying. It's what we've been saying on this channel since we started this channel. Movie theater things are turning into event things. I didn't see many new movies this year, but the most memorable things I did were going to screenings. I saw Mikey and Nikki with Paul Scheer. I saw friend of the show Luke took me to go see Casino Royale on the big screen.
Say that again without burping.
Burping? Friend of the show, Luke Taylor, took me to go see Casino Royale. He also took me to go see A Real Pain, and Jesse Eisenberg spoke there. Oh, he also took me to, he does a good job taking me to these shows. We went to the New Beverly and did the Safdies double feature. We saw Good Time and Uncut Gems, and I gotta tell you, for a 5-hour double feature, it goes pretty fast. That was a good one.
And those were events because you were spending time with your buddy watching movies that you were...
Yeah, those were events because I was with my friend. We were going to rep theaters. Sometimes there were celebrities there. Sometimes it was in 35 millimeter. Sometimes it was a double feature. Everything was an event in and of its own right. I said it 100 times. I cannot afford to go to the AMC and go see these new movies. And then I can't afford to pay the $20 it costs the month later when it's on Prime. So I have to wait for it to go streaming. And that window from the theater to free on streaming is back in the 3-month, 4-month range. And ultimately, that's why I think what theaters need to start considering doing, not the big guys, but some of the smaller houses, if you are an independent, any of them are left. If you're a 4-house, 5-house, or whatever. Hi. Come on. You want to say hi? Oh, this guy. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And that's why I think we need to bring back secondhand theaters. I grew up with cheap seats. I've talked about it before. $2 back in the day when you did have to wait. Are there secondhand theaters anymore? Feels like a relic, like a drive-in. Back in the day when you had to wait a year for a movie to come out on VHS, your movie would be at the main theater for 2 months, and then it would disappear for a couple of weeks. But then it would come back at the cheap seats for another 2, 3, 4 weeks. But those tickets were a fraction of the price. So I'm the youngest of 5, being a family of 7. We did not watch movies on the first weekend, ever, ever, ever. And most of the movies we went to were at the cheap seats, because it makes the most sense. Then when I was 12 or so, 10, and biking on my own, that was the movie theater that I could bike to on my own and pay for on my own with money that I found in the house. I think it would be silly. I'm watching these movies on Netflix. I'm watching these movies like Gladiator or whatever. And I just keep thinking, man, if that empty theater down the street that cannot figure out a way to stay open played Wicked and Gladiator and Moana 2 for $5 a head, that people would end up coming. And you can also play all of the specialty stuff. I feel like if you put up Megalopolis, if you put up Honora or The Substance, that people would pay the money, because the fact of the matter is, when it's out of the theater and only on Prime, it costs $20 whether you're one person or a family. And that's what they've figured out as the average. But if I just want to go see a show, I can't just go to the movies anymore. If I could just go to the secondhand, pop in $5, I would go see a movie. I want to know if anyone out here in LA knows who owns the Highland Theater. I know his name, but I can't get in contact with him. The Highland Theater is right down the street, and I really think we could do something with it in this neighborhood. I do think that LA is the place for it. It would be great. Wow, what a fabulous video that was, I must say. We want to wish a happy new year to everyone. We're going to talk more about the film during Micro Cinema, tell you everything that's happening in downtown LA, plus get deeper into what we talked about in this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, tell us what you think. Every little thing, we want to hear it. We'll respond. We love to interact. If you do us a favor, check out the links below. We have links to our Redbubble merch page. We got links to my Collider author page if that interests you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the future.
It's Bliss.